This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good Yom Tov, Rabbi. What we're going to learn and delve into is a major topic. It's not something that we'll cover in one sitting, but at least let's begin, and hopefully, with Hashem Yisbarach, we could get some understanding of this subject matter. It will probably take us a number of sessions. So let's jump right into the raging river of the topic we discussed, and that is, I'm sure, as children, and throughout the years, we've heard about the well-known Sambatyon river. We know it's some kind of raging river. Where is it? What is it? Is it real? Can we find it? Is it a symbolism? We also learn about the 10 lost tribes that before the Galus, before the Churban, about 130 years before the Churban, Sanhedrin Melech Asher came, he exiled the 10 tribes. Where did they go? Did they come back? Where are they today? Can we find them? Nowadays, in many of the Jewish periodicals, thank you very much, they talk about various Shvatim. You have the Bnei Moshe, the Bnei Menasseh, the Bnei Yisrael. Who are these people? Are they in fact Jewish? Will the Aseres HaShvatim return before Mashiach comes? Other Gemaras are mashma, they went lost forever. Do the Aseres HaShvatim have anything to do with the Sambatyon? And also we're going to discuss what this has to do with the piyut that we say on Shavuos Akdamus. Well, let us begin. Is there any mention of this river in Shas? That's always the starting point of any discussion on any subject. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Samach Hey and Beis, where the Gemara tells us about Turnus Rufus. Turnus Rufus was the Roman governor of Eretz Yisrael during the reign of Hadrian, and he asked many questions to Rabbi Akiva. V'yav she'elazu sha'al Turnus Rufus as Rabbi Akiva. This question also Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva. Amar lo, he said to Rabbi Akiva, Uma yom mi yomayim. Why is this day better than any other day? Meaning, referring to which day? Shabbos. In other words, what's so special about Shabbos? Why do you Jews treat Shabbos so specially? And how do you even know it is Shabbos? Like, Nehechi Tesid Shabbos. Maybe you lost count one day. Amar lo, so Rabbi Akiva says back, Uma gever mi guvren. And why are you special than anybody else? Why are you different? And how do you even know you're you? Amar le demarit savi. The answer is, my master desires me. Hadrian chose me. Hadrian appointed me. That's why I'm special. So Rabbi Akiva says back, Shabbos nami demarit savi. Shabbos also our master has selected. Amar le. He's the officer, he's the Roman governor during the reign of the Emperor Hadrian. Amarle, so Turnus Rufus says, Hachi kaminalach, this is what I mean to say to you. Mi yemar diha'idna shabasa. How do you know today is Saturday? Fine, Saturday is special, but maybe today's Friday, maybe it's Sunday. Amarloi, Rabbi Akiva said, I'll prove it to you. Nahar Sambatyon yochiach. The Sambatyon river will prove it. We'll see what that means. Baal Oiv yochiach. The Baal Oiv. Now, Baal Oiv is someone who's able to bring up the dead. A Baal Oiv is only able to bring up the dead Sunday through Friday. Saturday, it don't work. And finally, Kivroi Shel Aviv yochiach. The grave of your father will demonstrate it. Why? She'ein maleh ashan b'Shabbos. Because the grave of your dead does not bring up, the grave of your father does not produce smoke on Shabbos. Every day, Turnus Rufus' father's grave brought up smoke to indicate that he was being judged every day, and Shabbos it did not produce smoke. So Turnus Rufus says back, Amarloi bezisai, baishasai, b'kalalasai. Basically, you've ashamed me. But what does this mean? Nahar Sambatyon yochiach. Says Rashi, what is the Sambatyon river? Rashi says, Nahar Echo Shalavanim. It's a river of stones. V'chol Yomos HaShabbos. Shoitei Fahoilech. All through Shabbos, it rages and it rushes. V'yom HaShabbos. But on Saturday, Shoiket V'nach. It's tranquil and it rests. Now Rashi doesn't say it throws stones. It could just be it's a raging river that in its course of rushing it shoots out stones because the rocks and the stones in the water are ejected. So you should know, there are 3 mentions of this river in the Medrash. Once in Bereshis Rabbah, Parsha Yud Aleph Oisei. Once in the Yalkut Shmoini in Bereshis Remez Tes Zayin. And once in the Medrash Tanchuma, Parshas Ki Sisa Siman Lamed Gimel. And in all 3 instances, there's one discrepancy that it has from the Gemara. And that is, it's not Sambatyon, but Sambatyon, the way we're more familiar with. The other discrepancy is just in the Shakla V'Tarya here. Let's just read one of them, Bereshis Rabbah. Turnus Rufus Harasha Shalas Rabbi Kiva Amar Loi Mayu Miyamayim. Why is today special? Amar Loi Ma Gvar Min Guvrin. How are you special? Amar, he said, Ma Amrit Lach Uma Amart Li. Turnus Rufus says, I don't understand what you're talking about. What did I say to you that you said this back to me? In other words, say that again. It's not a response. In other words, what are you talking about? How am I special? You must not have gotten my question. So how did you understand, Rabbi Kiva, what I asked you? So Rabbi Kiva said back, you said to me, Mayim. In other words, how is Shabbos different? And I said to you, and how are you different? So Turnus Rufus says, the king wants to honor me. Amar Loi Avzu Ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Chavda. Amar Loi Minonat Moida. Amar Loi Hare Nahar Sambatyon Yechiach. The mountains, in other words, the stones of the Sambatyon river will prove it. Shamoishe Chavanim Koyimais HaShabbos Uv'Shabbos Hunach. Amar Loi, so Turnus Rufus says, am I a fool? Linogda at Nogidli Asmaha. Do you possibly intend to pull me along from something I cannot verify? You bring me a proof from Sambatyon. You take me to the Sambatyon, I'll see how it rages the whole week, I'll see how it rests on Shabbos, and then that will be a proof that there's something special about Shabbos. Don't bring me a proof from some kind of legendary thing that's so far, well, the Marzav explains, don't bring me a proof from something that's so far away from civilization that you can't prove it. Right? People, when they want to prove something that's not, they bring a proof from a davar rachak that's not verified. This is the mention of the Sambatyon in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, as well as 3 places in the Midrash. Where else is the Sambatyon mentioned? It's mentioned 2 places in Zmiros of Shabbos. So, for example, there's one of the Zmiros we say of Shabbos Koideshu. Take a look. We say Zeh ha'ois asher sam keil beinoy uveimnei. So this is a sign that God placed between him and Bnei Yisrael. Uvashavi asher hoyel. Sambatyon Hanar, the river Sambatyon, Shebechol Yoim Ratz V'Nimhar. Every day it runs quickly. Yoichiach Boy Manoyach. It proves rest. Tashiv Lemin Asher Shoyal. It's a response to the Apikoros that asks. Obviously a reference to Turnus Rufus. Also in the Zmiros of Shabbos Mayafis we say Dvar Simen Toiv Lach B'man. There's a good sign with the man. V'ois Degel. With Sambatyon HaMizgalgal, with the rolling Sambatyon, B'chol Yoim, every day, Nach, in other words, HaMizgalgal B'chol Yoim, Nach Ka'am Segel. It rests like the Am Segula, Yishbesu V'Yishkoitu. Interesting. No mention anywhere is given, where is this river? Rabbi Kiva says, Sambatyon Yochiach. In Zmiros, we talk about the Sambatyon. Where is the river? Comes the Ramban, and the Ramban says on the pasuk in Hazinu, Amarti afehem ashbisa me'enosh zichram. I said afehem ashbisa, I will destroy from men their memory. What is this referring to? Amarti afehem. So the Ramban says, Amru hamedaktikim. The medaktikim say, Afazreim b'chol peah. I will scatter them to every corner. Af ehem, lashon of peah. Amarti, I will afehem. Peah we know is a corner. Afehem, I will scatter them to every corner. V'imkein yiatam amarti. So when the pasuk says amarti afehem, that means God wanted to do that, but He didn't. I wanted to scatter them. The pasuk continues, Lule kas oyev agor. In other words, had it not been the pent-up anger of the enemy, I would have destroyed them forever. But says the Ramban, I disagree with this interpretation of afayim. My opinion is it's a compound word. Like the Sifri mentions. Af, a, hem. Af, anger, a, where, hem, them. In other words, in my anger I said, where are they? I wanted to make it that nobody will know where they are. God said, I made it, I placed them in a way that Goyim will say, where are they? Then nobody will know where the Jews are. There'll be no remnant of them. Nobody will know where they are. Now what's that talking about? When did God ever take Jews and put them somewhere where nobody knows where they are? This is a remez to the exile of the 10 tribes. Shegalu l'nahar goizen. They were exiled to Nahar Goizen. Hu shachachamim koirin Sambatyon. This is what the Chachamim call the Sambatyon. Kinikra Goizen milashon vayogez solvim. Goizen refers to means removed. So, for example, look in number 9. When the Navi talks about the exile of the Aseres Hashvatim, it says they were exiled to Nahar Goizen. Look at number 9. Bishnas Hatshias, in the 9th year, Lahishea. Lachan Melech Ashur es Shomron. The king of Ashur conquered the Shomron. Vayegel es Yisrael. He exiled Klal Yisrael Ashura. Vayoyshev Oisam. You know where he put them? Here's all we have. I remember many years ago, someone once asked Victor Miller, where are the Aseres Hashvatim? He said, where they are? The Navi says where they are. They're in Chalach, Chavor, Nahar Goizan, and Orei Madai. Wherever these places are, that's where they are. The same pasuk we have.
It would have to have been end of the territory that this guy was responsible for. Right? It's not in Africa or wherever.
Well, Ashur certainly was a world force, was a world empire. And he took them. Now, Nahar Goizan. What's Nahar Goizan? The Ramban identifies Nahar Goizan as Sambatyon. Ata goizi meirechem. God, you removed me from the womb. Ki ha'oimdim acharav. Anyone behind the Sambatyon river, Musarim ibnei Adam, is removed from civilization. And why is it called Sambatyon? Again, the Ramban gives it the same name as the Gemara, not like the Medrash. Sabbath. Shabbat. The people who live in that area, they call Shabbos Sabbath. The Karnos is Sabbatim Neshvisasa b'Shabbos. Kiyom HaShabbos b'Lashon Anhu Sabbath. Shabbos in that language is Sabbath. Kasher hu ba'Arabi, just like as it is in Arabic. V'Nohog b'Lashoinam lahoisif. Why is it called Sambatyon? It should be called Sabbath. The rabbis of the Mishnah and the Gemara, they always make words yon, like V'Nohog b'Lashoinam lahoisif b'Ta'arim yon, Azov yon, Chori yon, Mol yon. And nowadays, Jews like to say million. So, we always like to add yon, right? So, therefore, Sabbath is after Shabbos.
So where does Sam come from?
In Arabic, Shabbos is Sabbath.
No, the mem.
Oh, the mem? The Ramban doesn't have the mem. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn about it. Okay, now, there are 2 versions of the Mareh Mekomos. One is the version you have over here. And the updated version, which I don't even know if it's about this year, has a different Mareh Mekom. We're going to do both briefly. And they both come from the Sefer called Mikveh Yisrael. The Mikveh Yisrael was written by Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel, one of the most interesting all-time Jewish personages. If you want to look at a picture of him,
can you show to that?
I once gave this out many years ago on Parshas B'Chukoisei. Must have been 3 years ago. Well, Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel was born on the island of Madeira in Portugal in 1604. He passed away in Middelburg, Holland in 1657. He was born as a Marano in Portugal. He was taken as an infant to Amsterdam, Amsterdam at the time was a haven for many Maranos. Again, think about the year. This is in the year 1604. You would think by then Spain already cooled off. No. more than a century later after the Inquisition, his family, he was born in Marano in Portugal, taken to Amsterdam. His family openly returned to faith and embraced the name Ben Yisrael. He studied under Rabbi Yitzchak Uziel, and Rabbi Yitzchak Uziel died 2 years later. At the age of 18, Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel was appointed the rabbi of the Sephardic community, Neve Shalom. He received a very comprehensive secular education. He's fluent in 10 languages. He had great knowledge in medicine, mathematics, astronomy, was very well read in classic literature, and the writing of the early Christian theologians. It's written that Cromwell, his interest in readmitting the Jews to England, was kindled by the attention of in Puritan circles to Rabbi Menasseh's work. In other words, when Cromwell saw that the Christian theologians were studying Menasseh's work, and specifically his work called Esperanca de Israel, he had a very interesting group of friends, among which was Rembrandt. Menasseh ben Israel was very good friends with Rembrandt, who actually made an etching of Rabbi Menasseh, and he prepared the copper plates illustrating some copies of Rabbi Menasseh's Piedra Gloriosa de la Estatua de Nebuchadnezzar, which was a Spanish work on the meaning of Nebuchadnezzar's statue. So Menasseh ben Israel wrote a Spanish work on Nebuchadnezzar's statue, and the illustration of it was prepared by Rembrandt himself. 1627, he founded the first Jewish printing establishment in Holland, and he employed a new typeface, which was copied later by many European printing houses. 1639, so 3 Sephardic communities in Amsterdam united to form Congregation of Neve Shalom. And who was the Rav? Reb Shaul Mortera, a very well-known God of Israel. He was the Rav.
He's only 35 years old at the time, right?
1639.
He was 1604.
Yeah, correct. Reb Yitzchak Abuhav de Fonseca, he was appointed the assistant Rav. And Rav Menasseh was only given a very minor appointment, and he did not have adequate income. And when a rabbi doesn't have adequate income, I'm out of there, right? He has to go, he decides he's going to go to the New World. He's going to come to America. In 1640, he's about to make the long journey over the Atlantic. He wants to settle in Pernambuco. Where's Pernambuco? Brazil, which were taken over by the Dutch, was heavily Jewishly populated already in 1640. And just then, the new community engaged Rabbi Yitzchak Abuhav as rabbi. In other words, as Menasseh ben Israel was about to go to Pernambuco, Pernambuco calls the Rabbi Yitzchak Abuhav, who was the assistant rabbi back in Neve Shalom. So Rabbi Menasseh was offered to be assistant rabbi in Neve Shalom, and suddenly Rabbi Menasseh's financial problems were solved. 1644, the Pereira brothers founded a yeshiva. Rabbi Menasseh became the Rosh Yeshiva. Rabbi Menasseh was very anxious to have Jews settle in England because they had been expelled in what year? 1290, the Jews were expelled from England. And Rabbi Menasseh felt that the Jewish people's return to England would be the last step before the coming of Mashiach. He felt that before Mashiach comes, the Jews need to return to England. Why? Because only after the Jews were scattered to the 4 ends of the world would they be redeemed. And therefore Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel published a sefer, Spesti Israelis, which was his preeminent work called Mikveh Yisrael, which we're about to read a piece from. Now, interestingly, he published this work in 1650. In 1650, he writes that the American Indians were, this is what I read, were descendants of the Aser Shvatim.
The American Indians.
This is what I read. It's printed in a reliable book. I don't know, but somebody happened to call me up this morning who received the email of these Marmakaimais and told me they did research on the Aser Shvatim for 40 years. When I told them this, they said it's a misreading of what Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel writes, that the American Indians took him to a remote place where there were people who claimed to be descendants of the Aser Shvatim. Okay, we'll have to look into that more. Now, The New World was Jewish, and it was the only barrier where the only barrier to the European countries that were barred out of there. Anyway, this work, Mikveh Yisrael, raised a lot of interest among the Christian Protestant theologians, especially among the Puritans, because there was an English preface, and in the English preface there was an address made to the Parliament, exhorting the members to consider the Jewish readmission to...
The English Parliament?
Yes. Now, one interesting thing Menasseh ben Israel writes, you can look this up in Perek Tezvav, Mikveh Yisrael, you can look it up, it's on Hebrew books. He writes that when Mashiach comes, the first Jews who are going to be redeemed are the Jews of America. Okay, he wrote this in 1650. So the first Jews who are going to be, why? Because the pasuk says...
It says America, he meant South America.
Which America? I don't know which America he meant.
Because he was going to Brazil, so...
I think he meant actually this America. He said like this, because there's a pasuk, he says, Ki li iyim yikavu, islands will gather to me, va'ani is Tarshish barishayna. Tarshish will come first. And says Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel, Tarshish is America. Lamaisa, the Targum Shivim says Tarshish is Carthaga. Where's Carthaga?
Cartagena?
It's in North Africa. Anyway, 1655, Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel travels to England. He brings with him his pamphlet titled...
55?
Yep.
Didn't you say he died in 1654?
No, 1657. 1655, he travels to England. He brings with him a new pamphlet called Humble Address to the Lord Protector, outlining his argument to allow Jews to settle in England. Rabbi Menasseh was received very cordially, and Oliver Cromwell actually gave him audience, and he agreed to him, stopping short of granting his plea. However, because of the public opinion. In the following year, England declared war against Spain, and the rich and important Moranos were in big trouble, because they were Spanish, officially of Spaniard descent, and the only way they were able to remain safe in England was to proclaim themselves as Jews. And actually, England declaring war on Spain is what allowed these Jews to publicly come out that they were Jews and not Spaniards. Okay, so basically a year later, because of the war of England and Spain, Cromwell allowed the Jews to stay on a temporary basis. Not until 1753 were Jews granted English citizenship.
He's a King Kong?
Oh, Cromwell was a...
No.
No.
Rabbi Menasseh left England. He left England after audience with Cromwell, broken, penniless, and feeling he hadn't accomplished anything. And his son, this was intensified by the fact that his son Shmuel passed away on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Menasseh sailed with his coffin to Holland. So soon after his arrival, he himself passed away at the age of 53, and he was well known as a great orator. And let me share with you one thing that he writes, and then we'll have to pick it up, Mirz Hashem, after Yom Tif. Let's take a look at, in my version, number 11, but you don't have it on yours, something that Rabbi Menasseh ben Israel writes about the Sambatyon River. Because, by the way, he was very interested in finding the Aseret HaShvatim. So if you look in number 11, V'gam machzik es devarav. Says Rabbi Menasseh, you want proof to the Sambatyon? Adam echad hayoloi klei zechuches. I know of a man who had a glass vessel, malei me'achol shabenhar Sambatyon, full of the sand of the Sambatyon. And for 6 days, the sand was flying around the cup. The sand could not rest for 6 days. And on Shabbos, the sand stopped. This is the testimony of Menasseh ben Israel. Va'ani kamoiken, and I will also testify that he's saying this is what someone told him. He said that my father told me, and he says, my father wouldn't lie to me, bavadei emesu. He says, Kimin advarim hanimnoim sha'avi saber devar shegel fnei banav. A father to lie straight out to his son, it's impossible. He told me many times that in Lisbon, I guess, what was Menasseh's father doing in Lisbon? Right? Rabbi Menasseh was born in Portugal. He said that in Lisbon, hayakushi achad, there was a black man. He had a glass full of sand. And he went every Erev Shabbos to the street. In the street it was called Ravanava. I wonder if that has to do with Neve Shalom, which is Rechov HaChadash. And a lot of Maranos were there. The Kushi said, you ain't no Marano, you Jews. And he would say, close your stores. They would say, what? And he would say,
come take a look at the glass.
Check out the glass. And the sand, which was moving, suddenly stopped, and the Jews got frightened and they all closed their stores. Right? I heard this from a very reliable source. He saw another black man with a glass vase. And he would go in front of the mosques. And while all of them were bowing on the Friday, he would just stand there with the glass. And then all of a sudden, and the guard would come by. He said, what are you doing? And he got very angry at the black man. He said, you're doing the wrong thing, because you're strengthening the belief of the Jews. Without you, we would... He said, you're questioning... You're questioning the faith of... He says, in other words, you're doing something wrong. You're strengthening the the belief of the Jews.
Are we saying that this is like an African river because these were people that came from Africa?
Oh, I don't know. He says Menasseh in Israel, I believe this is not the only ness that God performed for the 10 Shvatim, but rather Hashem performed for them many, many miracles. And let me just share with you one other thing, one other interesting halachic point, and we'll hold it over here. The Ar Zarua brings the famous shaila: do you wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, or do you not wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed? So he brings an amazing thing. He says, you know what? I have a great way to find out whether you should wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed or not. Go to the Sambatyon River. If it's violent on Chol Hamoed, then you know taka. It's violent on Chol Hamoed. You need to wear tefillin. And if it rests on Chol Hamoed, then you know you shouldn't wear tefillin.
So now you didn't say anything until now that the Sambatyon rested on any day other than Shabbos. Who said it was going to rest on a Yom Tov?
So it seems like, according to this, it rested on Yom Tov.
Right,
and it seems, according to this might be a good way to find out whether, in fact, you should wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. So if anybody finds out about where the location is in River, please let us know, Mitzvah Hashem, after Yom Tov. I wish you a Chag Kosher V'Sameach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.